Hello there everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Unlimited video. I'm back from Japan. It was a great trip. I'll tell you more about it later. But I've just got back from work and it is time for the Banlist update. Apparently there is definitely going to be some sort of suspension. I can see there are something like 1,500 people currently waiting in this stream chat. So a pretty big news day. I'm going to give my opportunity right now. As you can see, we are just waiting for the stream to start. So I'm going to give my predictions. I think they're going to ban Jango. I think that is guaranteed. I think like that's going to be the easiest thing. If they are smart, they are also going to hit Han. I don't think you can leave Han completely untouched, because otherwise I think we're just in the exact same situation. I mean, Han has so many crazy tools, and if you don't even need to worry about Jango in your deck building, like, Han is just so nuts. And it was, frankly, the fact they didn't touch Han last set, I think was, just willfully ignorant. It was topping like a comparable amount to Boba, like, I don't know. So the minimum I think they need to do is they need to ban Jango, ban Han. I don't think you can just not touch Han. Like, you could just ban DJ, but then it's like, okay, fine. The deck is still going to be really oppressive. Now you just don't necessarily play double yellow Han, you play like Han green or something like that, and you just ramp out really, really big things, or Han red, and you get to do all your nonsense with Han red. Literally every single Han variety is viable. So I think you do. If you're banning Jango, I think you need to ban Han. That completely opens up the 6-drop leader space, and I think it'll just be so much more fun if you're actually able to play some of these new leaders, right? Like, we can start seeing these pilot leaders actually see some play. The other thing, so I think that's kind of the minimum. Minimum is Jango. If they don't touch Han, then I think there might be a problem. So I think you probably have to do Jango and Han. TDR, I think, is just this is maybe as good as TDR is going to be, but fundamentally, 6 resources, 13 damage is not great. So you should probably ban TDR too. The one thing I'll be very interested to see is whether or not they are going to ban any of the bases. I think there is a very reasonable argument for banning Tarkin Town. I think there's a very reasonable argument for banning ECL. I'll be very, very interested to see what they do with that. We are hopefully starting soon. We'll throw a little refresh on here, see if we're live yet. Oh, okay, all right, we've got 2 minutes. Okay, so yeah, I think that is the absolute minimum they need to do. Okay, I'll be back as soon as we start. Okay, here we go. Let's see what FFG have got for us.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to today's FFG Live, where we're going to be doing a competitive.
I think Ryan's new. I don't think we've seen Ryan before.
I'm your host, Xander Taylor. And
might be capping.
3 fairly familiar faces here.
Nope.
We've got Danny Schaefer, Ryan Miles, and Tyler Parrott.
Ryan is not new.
We're here to basically just talk a little bit about some of the sectors that have come over the last couple of weeks. We've had 3, I believe, 2 in Europe, 1 here in the United States for sector qualifiers. These are the first of our competitive series events that are outside of the store. They're at convention centers, massive events. We're really excited to see these events happening. It's finally kicking off, and it feels real, and we're here to see.
It'd be fun if they brought back Boba.
Happen and see some of the most
That'd be pretty
players
crazy.
Traveling all over to finally play each other. So it's super exciting, and that was the plan for most of the stream. But as many of you have already heard, we are going to be talking a little bit about some suspensions. So I wanted
some
to say,
suspensions,
people have,
plural. Okay.
I know that
now we get to tell them.
Yeah, now we get to tell them. So I know that many people have been curious about our plans for when we will be announcing things like this, and I want to say that our current cadence we've
just seeing if there's an article
as we went into Twilight Republic and Jump to Lightspeed was a week or 2 before the set drops. We want to do a meta update, looking at all the planetary qualifiers and things like that, and that has not changed. We plan to do that as we get closer to Legends of the Force as well, but we also want to do more competitive check-ins during the
doesn't look like there is an article just yet.
Between sets, and so it's not something that we want to say here's our hard dates for each of these, like the first of the month and thing. We want to be flexible and able to adapt to whatever large regionals are happening and things like that. And so this one was actually perfect timing and was planned months ago to be sitting here to chat once we had the sector dates picked out, because we wanted to be able to come in and talk about what was happening at these major events right away.
Okay.
And it's now just coincided very well with what we now
Whatever
let's talk
you
about
say,
today.
buddy.
And so, for those of you who were not around, maybe when we talked about Boba Fett and his suspension back right before the release of Twilight Republic, Danny, do you want to talk a little bit about our suspension philosophy as a whole for Star Wars
The
Unlimited?
website's not loading, which is making me
first off,
suspicious.
why do we use the term suspension? It's because these cards are not legal for tournament play. You won't be able to play any suspended cards in Premiere. But we don't see it as necessarily permanent. These cards could well be unsuspended at some point in the future. Maybe not, probably not all of them, but some could come back at some point.
Some could come back
so
at
it is
some
not
point. That's so
necessarily a
suspicious because
permanent
all of these are rotating,
as far as our
right? Like they're
criteria
not
for
going to ban
suspension,
anything
there's a
from
few
set
factors we
4.
really look at. The
So-
first is just
so all of this would
dominance.
rotate.
If a deck is a huge percentage of top 8s at big tournaments or is consistently winning competitive events over and over again, that's going to be our number one factor. We also look a bit at the amount of time a deck has been on top of the meta. If a deck just suddenly shows up for one event versus if it's been around for months and months dominating.
So why is Han
The last thing to look
untouched?
at is
That's
the play
my
pattern.
question.
There's some types of cards that might have a play pattern that's more detrimental or that holds back a wider variety of decks that we will look at more aggressively taking action on if they're also dominant.
I think that's a pretty good overview of the whole thing. And so I know people are already asking as well, is what are the suspensions that will be going to
Multiple,
effect, as of this
multiple,
Friday,
plural.
April 11th?
As of this Friday, okay, it's 2 days.
I think we're going to throw them up on screen too, but the 3 cards are
3 cards.
Triple Dark Raid,
Triple Dark Raid,
Jango Fett,
Django,
Concealing the Conspiracy,
DJ
that's
Ohan.
obviously the Jango leader from Twilight
and
Republic,
DJ. Wow.
and
Okay.
DJ Blatant Feet.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
Those are
That's
the 3.
pretty
We're gonna
big.
get
That's
into a lot of detail about why we did
that's
those 3.
crazy.
Yeah, we're going to be talking a bunch about this, but these will be in effect as of April 11th. That's this
I would say
Friday,
that
so
is
many of you
pretty
are
much
planning
9
to
out of
head
10.
to
I
Rift,
am
second qualifiers,
still very
as
concerned
well
about
as,
Han.
all the qualifiers that
I
happen
do.
and
I will say,
qualifiers
without
that affect
DJ,
all the
you are
events.
not
And
gatekeeping
anything at your local store.
6
And then
drops
your local
quite
store
as
going
much.
forward.
Like 6 drop
So,
leaders can maybe
I think
survive.
really, important
But
part of why
Han's
we chose this
still
week.
crazy.
Danny, do you want to talk about why now
Yeah.
is the right time to take action?
Yeah, so this, as you alluded to, Xander, is a pretty ideal timing point for us, where we've gotten to see data from the 3 sectors already.
Okay, so
and
as
other
they
big
explain,
events that also happened
I
in
guess
the first
what
few
do
weeks.
I think
But we
this is
have a
going to do
gap
for the
now
meta?
before
I
the
think
next sector,
so. Very interestingly,
enrichment
like
and
I think,
before,
I mean, this is
season starts
it's
and
interesting
before
because
regionals
without
get.
Han
So,
one
we'll
yellow
take action now,
being able
go
to
into
just,
effect
I mean,
this
without
week.
people just being able to
We'll
yoink
still
resources
give
in
people a couple
general,
of weeks to prepare for
and the
the
hand ripping
events.
being weaker.
Yeah, that was one of the most important parts, right?
In,
Is-
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
I mean, the
I was
hand
gonna say,
ripping is necessarily weaker,
One
but
of the reasons
because
that
you
we
can't
picked
rip
this
resources,
weekend,
Han one yellow
week
now.
specifically to have a meta.
I think
effect
Han
at
one
all,
yellow is a
just 'cause
lot
we
weaker.
incidentally found that there was a couple weeks
And
of,
it's
no
maybe
major
going to be
events, and we could
less of
sneak
a
it in,
powerful
so that
presence in
anything
like
that we did wanna
gatekeeping
talk
these hard
about,
control
people
decks.
would have ample time.
So I'm
Before
going
the
to be
next big
really
event
interested to
to
see
adapt
if we're
or
just going to see
adjust
a
or-
huge wave of hard control showing up.
Well, this is going into effect fairly quickly, obviously, with a couple of days, similar to what we did with Boba Fett. We want to make sure that you had multiple weeks before you had to get ready for your next event to get the testing in with you and your team or your local game store.
Yeah.
So it's always on our mind is we don't want to shake something up before people have the chance to adjust and be ready for some of these big events that you're all traveling to. So without all that information about the suspensions and things, we want to talk a little bit about why these cards and why now with that.
Okay,
And so
yeah,
Ryan,
let's
you were
listen to
here
this.
to join us. You also, for those of you at home, are new to the team as one of the developers.
Okay, fine, he
so
is
you
new.
missed the stream where you were introduced. Here's Ryan. But also, you wrote an article covering all this as well, so stay tuned. That'll
Alright.
be going live around
See
2
if
p.m.
that's-
on our website with all of this information we're going to go over now.
Those out in a
Make
couple
sure we
hours,
chat about it
probably.
with everybody too. So why don't we talk a little bit about Triple Dark Raid to start?
Absolutely. We talked a lot about the difference between Triple Dark Raid and Jango, which one of these was kind of the problem. Those were the 2 things that most of the community was really, really upset about. It's just like the play patterns of those 2 cards. And we ended up going with both of them. So talking about Triple Dark Raid first, it had 100% representation
So I will
in the
say-
top 8 of our very first sector qualifier in Milan. That was 3 copies in all 8 of the top 8 decks, which is just an
Yeah, well, I
overwhelming
mean, come on.
amount of
Yeah,
copies of
this
those
was a-
cards
this
to
was
be
a
in the
problem
top
card
8,
in set
even
3.
across 2 different decks, right?
This could have been-
And
could
then,
have seen
of
this
course,
coming.
with the next sectors next weekend, it was in 2/3 of all of the top 8 decks, just an over-present card and extremely powerful, right? The real issue with the card is it doesn't even have to go with Jango. It is just a fundamental problem in terms of how much damage the card can do. You know, especially when paired with the
Devastator.
Devastator, when paired with the War
Indeed.
Juggernaut. The fact that the unit comes in ready and
I do think this is the death
at
knell
a
for
resource
Boba 4.
discount,
I
means
don't
just
think you
pushing
can
out
really
more
play Boba
damage than
4
any cunning
now.
card really should be doing, right? Really should be more in the
I
aggression.
mean,
band.
you can. It's just
So the
it
fact
feels
that you
like
see the TDR.
It just feels a lot
put
weaker.
into the aggression decks, especially. Where it
maybe
is
not the
taking
death
advantage
knell,
of
but
the
like it's
powerful
not good
aggression
for
ships.
Boba 4.
It was just doing too much damage. And
I
literally
will
causing
say,
problems.
I mean, well, I don't know. Han 1 yellow, to be fair.
The design of Triple
Got a
Dark
good
Raid
Sabine
and sort of where it
matchup.
was
And Sabine's
in-
going to
in
be...
Tyler as
Sabine's
well.
stonks are going to be
When
out.
we had this developed,
Although Sabine is obviously going to be rough into the
Yeah, I
hard
mean, I
control.
think the biggest thing
So
here is
maybe
we
this is where we see our
developed it
triangle.
for the Shadows of the Galaxy and to some degree the Twilight Republic metagame in a world where there just weren't as many great hits. There weren't Devastator. There was Ruthless Raider, of course, is the best one, but there wasn't Devastator and Warg Juggernaut and all these other cards. So there was a
mainly
real
those
risk
two.
reward with it at the time. There was a chance that you would miss on hitting a really good target when you played it.
And because we didn't have, because the volume of space units in the game prior to Jump to Lightspeed didn't really support a deck full of space units that could really
That's not true.
consistently capitalize. on
That's
triple
not true. That's not true.
The
Django
reason that
existed
the
in
card
this
is so
form
strong is
in set
because
3.
there is intended to
It's
be
just
a
the
certain
top end
amount of
got
risk
way better.
that sometimes you're going to not get the unit you want, sometimes you might not get a unit at all, and sometimes you're going to get a great unit at a discount attacking right away. And it turns out when we print a bunch of really good space units, this card, the risk that is this card's downside goes away, and then it becomes too good.
Yep.
Yeah, and to be
Agree
sure,
with that.
we knew at the time we designed the card that more space units and better space units would be coming. We tried to balance it in a forward-looking way, but we missed. The degree to which the vehicles got better going forward was just more than we anticipated. And one thing that this is worth noting with our design philosophy is when we got to Jump to Lightspeed, obviously we knew we were adding a lot of great space units, a lot of vehicles. We knew the Triple Dark Raid existed, but we didn't want to hinder an entire set for the sake of one card. We would rather.
I am
take action
very
on one
curious
card,
to see
if it ends up being a problem.
because the meta is going to be very interesting. I mean, CAD is strong. CAD is really strong. Quinlan's really strong. Han's really strong. Sabine's really strong. Bosca's really strong.
That and some of the numbers and things as we go. But let's talk about Jango Fett, Concealing Conspiracy. I know this is one that the community was chatting about a lot over the last couple of weeks. So do you want to talk about that one a little bit, Ryan?
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, Jango, 15 out of 24 out of our top 8 for our first 3 sector qualifiers. That is over 50%. It is a very, very high number and something we really wanted to look at. And the play pattern problems here are just that it cuts off a lot of interaction. Being able to protect itself by exhausting all of your opponent's units makes it very hard to deal with in combat. You get to protect that body to keep exhausting every single unit. It's just more than we really feel comfortable with on a leader.
Yeah, I mean, maybe don't print War Juggernaut then.
You still have War Juggernaut, you still have Devastator, you still have IG-2000. Jump to Lightspeed gave it a lot of new tools that let it exhaust entire boards.
I'm seeing a lot of people in chat saying TDR was a miss. Guys, TDR was not a miss. TDR was a good hit. Fundamentally, every red-yellow deck, every red-yellow villain deck was going to be able to go cool 13 damage on 6 resources. That's not fair. That's not fun. It's a negative play experience. It's a negative play pattern. Don't do that.
Is there anything you both would like to add about Jango Fett on top of that?
Only that the Jango ended up in a similar spot to Triple Dark Raid, right? Like, we didn't see a huge Jango dominance before Jump to Lightspeed because so much of Jango's design is specific around a specific kind of mechanic that it turns out gets overcharged when you make a whole set mechanic about it, right? Indirect damage naturally plays really synergistically with Jango, and the cards that we made to synergize with the indirect damage mechanic also, right? Because War Juggernaut, IG-2000, these are cards that were designed to help pay you off in a indirect damage deck. They're also naturally really good in a Jango deck, and also all these indirect damage cards are also really good in a Jango deck. And so
banning Jango would not have solved the TDR problem. I'm sorry, guys. TDR was a really good hit. TDR was a really, really good hit. I'm just dropping this in.
After Jump to Lightspeed came out, and while we knew Jango was going to be strong, we didn't foresee quite how strong he would end up being.
Yeah, and I think this is a point, too, to emphasize that this is partially the cascading effect of Set 1 Boba Fett, who we had to suspend, where at the time we were testing Twilight and Jump to Lightspeed, we had Boba Fett as the strongest cunning villainy leader, probably, but we didn't know he would be suspended.
Yeah, to be fair, I think that's a very good point. That is a very good point. They would have been testing this with Boba.
Probably made us miss the Jango Fett.
And so, yeah, Boba would have been... Yeah, no, that's fair, actually. That's fair.
So
I'm much more sympathetic. Boba is overshadowed.
Wrote about for the last meta update that came out right before Jump to Lightspeed, and that we weren't taking action at that point. So why now with DJ? people
Yeah,
can talk about that.
I can start on this one. I think it's going to be the big question. Why did we not act before? Why are we acting now? And I think a lot of it is what we said in that stream. We anticipated that jump to light speed would change the metagame a lot and wanted to see how that played out before we took any action, given where Han and DJ decks had been. Obviously, the metagame did change a lot, but it changed in a way that shifted very hard towards dominance by a different deck, which was not necessarily, obviously what we wanted. Now that those changes did happen, and we're taking action against the best deck, we don't want to just go back to a world where Han DJ decks are back at the top of the meta, where they're potentially being as dominant as they were in Twilight.
Good take.
And we did feel like taking DJ out of the equation was the step to, one, address the play pattern issues. I think permanently.
I still think
the most negative
Han
issues
should have
those
been
decks.
banned, because I think Han is now just the de facto best leader in the game.
Not entirely.
And also, I mean, you can
It's
speak
just
more to this, but
so
I think
strong.
Part of it is also that specifically the Han DJ interaction is hostile to a specific archetype of deck.
Yes.
That we do want to be in the natural cycle of decks that exist in a metagame. And so here, yeah, you can keep playing Han, but you don't get to play the version of Han that invalidates a whole archetype.
Yeah, Han has kind of been performing as the best control deck, which has been a little bit weird. It is supposed to be this sort of mid-range, I'm playing ahead of curve kind of shell, and I run out of cards. And tech is going to help mitigate a lot of that. Smuggle is still going to help mitigate a lot of that. But when you also had access to DJ, you were just also beating every other control deck because getting those 2 resources ahead of them was just too much of a problem. And also, I know a lot of people in the community think that, or just like have opinions that you are able to play around DJ, right? And a lot of the Tarkin Town decks can do it. You have Force Choke. You do have ways to kill DJ. But I think the problem is really just holding up those resources to do it. Because Han is playing ahead of curve on turn 1, then you're staring at a 3-drop on turn 1. As you have
Excellent
to hold up
content.
the resources
Excellent
to play on
content
the
from Ryan
DJ,
here.
the cards that Han has played ahead of curve are just kind of beating you up the whole time. So holding up your resources to defeat the threat of DJ is almost as bad as just losing to DJ itself. And we still want Han to be a kind of a pillar of the metagame. It is a really good mid-range deck. It's a very good yellow hero deck. We want those tools to still be in the format, and that's why we ended up going with DJ and not Han solo.
Yeah. I think that's a great question that I wanted to address is, we're doing Jango and Triple Dark Raid. Is there a reason both of those are being suspended from the metagame rather than Han is not, and Han is still around after this?
Yeah, Jango and TDR are just both really problematic independently of another. The Triple Dark Raid got a lot of new tools with War Juggernaut and with Devastator.
Devastator's the big one.
Devastator's huge,
right?
yeah. Django is really good with IG-2000 and War Juggernaut and Devastator. So when you take out Triple Dark Raid, you still have all those problems. When you take out Django, you still have all those problems. So it was kind of a perfect storm that they both got all these tools at the same time in the same deck and just had complete unprecedented dominance, as we've kind of seen for the past couple sectors. We really feel like if you just take away one of those, if you take away Django, those 40 of those 50 cards just go into a different deck.
Correct.
And if you take away Triple Dark Raid, you still have Django, you just don't play Triple Dark Raid, and you're still having all these problems of exhausting entire boards.
This is great.
But with DJ
Great
outside
takes.
of Han really is just playing a fair mid-range game, maybe a little bit unfair.
I don't agree with this. I don't agree with
A
this.
fair mid-range game that he gets to be good at.
Losing,
slightly
it's a
unfair
risky
game.
game,
I don't know if I agree with this. I don't know if I agree with this. I think there was a Han fanboy in the team. I think there was a Han fanboy. That's fine. I'll be very interested to see how dominant Han is over the next few weeks and months.
To win the next event.
I wouldn't be shocked to see a Han ban just before Worlds. In particular because I think they'll want as many new leaders showing up as possible.
I don't think it'll have the same kind of dominance that we would expect Jango or Triple Dark Raid to really have.
Yeah, I think we can't overstate enough just how much more dominant Jango has been these first few weeks than Han was even in Twilight. Han was a bit above where we'd want the best deck to be.
I don't know.
Jango
Maybe they have
has
different
been
data
way
than we
above.
do, but...
Yeah.
Yes, so I think that answers a lot of the different questions on that. Again, we're always looking at the tournament results, different cards like that. I know that there is lots of discussion internally about different things like Tarkin Town and pieces like that. And I'm sure those will be discussions that going forward, as well as Han Solo and keeping an eye on him, as you mentioned, towards Richmond and regionals going forward. But looking forward, is there anything that you all want to chat about just overall about the suspension philosophy or anything?
I think as we said at the top, we are going to keep looking at the suspended list every time a new set hits, every time a new metagame hits, and see if there are things that can come off the list. I don't think in the immediate future any of these cards are coming off, but I could see a world where several months down the line the meta has shifted enough where some of them might be safe to come back.
Yeah.
Post
Or
Worlds,
Boba Fett,
basically. Maybe we'll see Boba come back post Worlds.
Also something to talk
for
about,
one
just,
last ride.
You know, Jump to Lightspeed was pretty much the vehicle set, and
Right.
then the vehicle cards from previous sets kind of got a big boost. Legends of the Force is the Force set, right?
Right,
So we're
right.
keeping an eye on those Force cards, those Force payoffs that might be really, really good coming in.
Force Star. Force Star.
But I don't think we're really looking at
Yeah,
it.
Force Star pretty good. Force Star pretty good.
Yeah.
Great call out. All right. Tyler, is there anything from you before we close out here today?
No, they've covered it.
They've covered it? Great.
It's we always are looking to see. We're every time we do one of these meta check-ins, we're always looking at the suspended list to see if anything can come back. And even if the answer is no, we're always at least checking, and then hopefully one day we'll be able to unsuspend a card. Although it's a little silly to be talking about unsuspending a card right now when we're a year into
Putting
the game's
3 more
life.
on as well, yeah.
Well, specifically that we're only a year into the game's life, right? Boba Fett hasn't been gone for very long.
True.
That's fair. All right.
Head
So,
on, pause. Excuse me.
late June, early July with the next meta check-in. This will not be the last time we talk about the competitive series of
Guys, I'm reading into that.
Will be happening
That's
all the way
Boba coming
in
back.
May
That's Boba coming back
June,
off set
July,
5. I'm telling you
back
right
to
now.
Championship.
As
And
post Worlds,
Zero.
Boba, he is
we will
back.
be having our
Make it
official
happen.
meta check-in again with an article and
Baby
a
yellow.
dedicated specifically to that then. But again, we always have the option to do things sooner, and we're glad that we had today already planned. But we don't want these sort of competitive check-ins to be something scary or something where you're expecting suspension every single time. We do want to just do a great job of, Can
we get some set file spoilers
acknowledging
too?
the
Can we throw
results,
those in?
talking about
Get
what
a live
we've
reaction?
seen, anything that might be a problem down the road. I think it's something we want to talk about more regularly. So keep an eye out for different streams and articles to talk about that. But otherwise, we will see you all in June for that discussion, and we will see.
Okay, apparently the
some of
article
these,
might be up
competitive
already.
Events very soon. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you 3 for joining us today, and we'll see you all next time.
Okay, that was quick. Right, I'm just going over to the website. Apparently the article might be up. No, might not be up. Okay. That's fine. If there's anything interesting in it, you'll see it. But otherwise, overall, as I say, W. I think that was like 9 out of 10. Like I said, I really think I would have hit Han. I'm glad they are paying attention. They're keeping an eye on Han. But I see no reason not to just be all in on the Han train. I'll be curious to see how much the showcase price is. And I'll be curious to see how much the showcase price on Jango is tanked. But yeah, I think this is great news, great bans. Well done, FFG. Well done for the quick response. Let me know what you all think in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm back. Looking forward to making more content. See you guys in the next video. Cheers.